Welcome to Off the Page. I'm Will Cain with Bob Costa. So, Bob, in what may not be a surprise, but has to be called an upset, little-known Joe Sestak has beaten 30-year incumbent, 5-term incumbent, 2-party incumbent Arlen Specter. What do you think? What do you think the voters were saying here?
Well, I was there last night, Will, in Philadelphia at the Sheraton, and Arlen Specter was truly toppled by Joe Sestak, a former naval admiral and a 3-term congressman from the Philadelphia suburb. It's an amazing win for Sestak. Senator Specter was backed by the Obama machine, by the Rendell machine, and the Bob Brady machine here in Philadelphia. And so for Sestak, with little fundraising and just some clever ads tying Specter to Bush, Palin, and Santorum to come back and get this win late in the day, was a huge accomplishment, and it's the end of a political era here in Pennsylvania.
You know, there's kind of two ways to look at this, Bob, and I'd love your take. Is this voter saying that Specter wasn't reliably liberal enough? Look, he had voted for the Iraq War, he had voted for Alito, he had voted to confirm Roberts. Was this saying, hey, we're not sure this guy, this is a Democratic primary now, but we're not sure this guy is reliably liberal, or is this just a total rejection of a political opportunist?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think your first point about it being a rejection of not enough of a progressive, of a guy who wasn't enough of a liberal, is definitely a big part of this story. Everywhere I went to about 5 or 6 polling stations in the morning on election day here in Philadelphia, and Arlen Specter just wasn't trusted. There was suspicion about his party switch. And Joe Sestak was able to capitalize on all of those things you mentioned, the Bork hearings, Anita Hill, President Bush, Rick Santorum, all these conservative support to really drive out votes. But remember, both of these guys were head over heels for the Obama agenda. So this wasn't really a referendum at all about the Obama agenda, but more about Obama's power. Obama wasn't able to come in, even though he didn't campaign for Specter, via ads he campaigned for Specter. He wasn't able to sway this race. Joe Sestak ran to the left, hard to the left, and was able to beat Specter from over there.
Yeah, what does this say about a White House endorsement now? I mean, in the past year, President Obama has endorsed the opponent of Scott Brown, and now the opponent of Joe Sestak, essentially, and failed to win both of those endorsements.
And they also failed in Virginia with Cree Deeds, and they also failed in New Jersey with John Corzine. So this is a White House that does not have the Midas touch when it comes to politics. But Specter had his own problems. You know, this is a guy who was a 30-year incumbent. He was a Republican for 29 years in the upper chamber. And for him to just expect to be able to win a primary here in Pennsylvania, well, it wasn't a good gamble. He thought a party switch was right. But Specter, you have to realize, here in the Keystone State, he is a political animal made for the general election, not the primary. He left the Republican Party because he thought he couldn't win the GOP primary over there, and he couldn't win the Democratic primary.
What do you think, Bob? What do you think's next for Arlen Specter? Is he done?
You know, I asked him that yesterday morning, if you lose, Senator, what's going to happen? And he said, my days aren't over. So with Arlen Specter, you never know what's next.
Really?
I don't think he's run for anything, but I would not be surprised to see him continue to serve in the government or in the private sector in some way. This is a guy who, even though he's 80 years old, is very spry, very intelligent, very smart, very sharp. Makes a lot of people angry on both sides, but I don't expect him to just lie back, go off, and enjoy retirement. This is a guy who likes to be in the arena. And
Bob, he didn't endorse Sestak last night, did he?
He did.
He did.
That's a very good question, Will, because he has said he's going to endorse Sestak, and he has said he will support Sestak if Sestak wins, like he did. The question is, to what degree will Specter really come out and support Joe Sestak? This was a negative campaign. Both of these guys were going at each other very hard. The ads got negative at the end. So will Specter really come out and stump for Joe Sestak? Will he help Sestak capture that important middle in Pennsylvania that you're going to need in the general election to beat Pat Toomey, the GOP Senate nominee? That remains to be seen.
So he endorsed Sestak, so we don't expect, or I don't even know if he could he re-enter the general election as an independent candidate? That's out of the question?
It's out of the question unless he wanted to maybe do something as a write-in. I'm not really sure about the law, but Pennsylvania usually has, it's against the losers. It's really rigged against the losers. You have to win a primary in Pennsylvania.
Right.
If Specter could have ran as an independent, maybe that would have been a better move. But at this point in Pennsylvania, you can't just waltz into a general election campaign after losing a primary.
What do you expect, Bob, in the general election? Sestak versus Toomey, right?
That's right. Pat Toomey, a former congressman himself, So you'll have two former congressmen kind of running against Washington, which is fine. I think Pat Toomey is in a very good position. He's run a low-key race. He's ready to come back and really come at Sestak hard. But he's going to have to really adjust his race because he was really thinking that he was going to be challenging Arlen Specter, the man he almost beat in the 2004 GOP Senate primary here in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So he's going to have to do a lot to come to the center with a lot of Pennsylvania voters without losing that Tea Party base. People are really frustrated with Washington and really helping them to get out the vote. I think Pat Toomey can do it. He's a strong candidate. He's running on the kind of things that are really striking a chord this year: lower taxes, fiscal responsibility, lower spending, getting Washington back under control of the people. And that's a strong message. But Joe Sestak, the former admiral, he has a great story. He always cites Kennedy. He's a fresh voice. So the Democrats have a better candidate if you talk to a lot of operatives than Specter.
Okay.
They're happy with this win.
You guys can find Bob on nationalreview.com. Follow me on Twitter at Will Cain. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thanks, Will.